Hey guys, Janelle here from JanelleEmma.com. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Now today I want to talk to you about sugar and how much I dislike sugar and how, I used to be really addicted to sugar. So for me, I like to now know, the benefits of not having sugar and the health benefits of taking it out of my diet, because it's very scary what I've learned about sugar and what it can do for the body and how much havoc that's playing on our bodies and our kids' health and all that sort of stuff. So today I want to talk to you about that, and I'm not sure how aware you are of sugar and the health effects that it has on our body, but you think about things like obesity, heart disease, cancer, impaired brain function, spikes in our blood pressure and our insulin levels. It's basically poison for our body. And you think about all the foods that are out there in our shopping centres and our grocery stores, and any packaged foods that have fructose in them and they have sugar on the labels, that sort of stuff. Imagine what that's doing to our body. We don't feel the effects of that now, but we will feel the effects of that later on in life if we don't take some charge on that and start to reduce the sugar within our bodies and within our lives. So I find that getting rid of all of the sugar within my household and just using natural sugars and different sweeteners that way is really making a big change for my kids. I don't see as many behavior problems and all that sort of stuff. So I know that sugar plays a big role in that. And our body loves sugar because it turns into an addiction. Because it's, causing that havoc on the body and on the brain, it's just as addictive as alcohol and as drugs and, that sort of thing. So this is why they say that sugar is actually more addictive than alcohol, more addictive than drugs. And how scary is that? That's because it changes that dopamine in the brain. One of those, it's like serotonin and dopamine. Your brain needs those to be functioning properly and working properly. And all sugar's doing is it's causing that massive spike of dopamine in the brain, which is really bad for our brain. The brain can't function properly by doing that. It causes our dopamine is for our, our mood, our concentration, our alertness and our memory, that sort of stuff. So if you're putting sugar into your diet every single day at every single meal, what are you doing to the dopamine in your brain? I went to a naturopath and she said my dopamine was really low. So that's the opposite end. But what that can be from is if you've been a big sugar head like I was years and years ago, and then you've gone off the sugar, your dopamine then drops right back down because it's not getting that sugar hit all the time to keep the dopamine spiked in the brain. So it's very dangerous to have low dopamine as well as really high dopamine. So, we've got to look at this sort of stuff within our lives and make conscious effort to get rid of sugar in our diet. I find that it's a really scary thing. And, if you have low dopamine, that's when you have depression, anxiety, you get mood swings, you can't think properly, you're always, your memory's bad, that sort of stuff. You get a bit of brain fog, and all that is caused, a lot of that is caused because the brain's not functioning properly because of low dopamine. So if you're someone who's gone from being a big sugar head to then being off sugar, like I was, your dopamine could be really low, and that's another issue you've got to address as well, and go see your holistic people about that to be able to help it out, because a normal GP isn't going to look at something like that unless they do a lot of testing. It's not something that they are specializing in, whereas your more holistic people like your naturopaths and your integrative nutritionists and stuff, they look at that side of thing. They look at the cause, and how we can fix that, so that's why I obviously recommend going to those sort of people first, because they're looking at the cause, and what I've found from my naturopath and nutritionist is huge compared to what I was being told from doctors. Not saying that doctors are bad, it's just the way that they have been taught to do things. So if we can get rid of the sugar in our diet, have a think about how that can help our health. The other thing is cancer. There has been that many studies on how sugar feeds cancer. We know that, you can look at a cell inside the body, and if you're eating a lot of sugar in your diet, those cancer cells multiply, they triple, they get bigger, they grow faster. How scary is that? We don't want cancer, and we don't want cancer if we've got it. We don't want it multiplying and tripling and all that sort of stuff. So, and that's because of the insulin. So our insulin is a hormone that regulates the body. Diabetics need their insulin to be more regulated and all that sort of stuff. But if you've got your insulin's being overloaded because of sugar, it means it can't function properly. That's a hormone that can't function properly, and our hormones play a huge part in our health. So you think about the insulin hormone, how much that's being activated or, put under pressure because of sugar. So, if that insulin, it can't regulate itself because of too much sugar, it can't then look after your cells properly. And if it can't look after your cells properly, what happens? Things like cancer take over. They interrupt that cell mutation. They interrupt that cell process and the production and keeping them healthy. And that's when they take over. It's like little Pac-Man that eat away at your cells because, the sugar is feeding that cancer. It's feeding that disease and making it far worse, than, if you were just not eating sugar, and looking after yourself with a lot of greens and antioxidants and all that sort of stuff. So cancer is one of the biggest ones there, and our insulin needs to be looked after. And the other thing is, if your insulin's spiked all the time, you crave more sugar because the sugar is spiking that insulin, which makes you crave carbs. It makes you crave more sugar, and this is why it gets so becomes such an addiction to our body. It becomes, like they say, more of an addiction than alcohol and drugs and all that sort of thing, and that's what messes up the brain function. And don't you think this stuff is scary? I look at this side of, what sugar can do for the body and the health of the body, and I just cringe, and I think to myself, I know back when I was a young kid, they didn't know all this stuff about sugar, and maybe they did, but it wasn't out to the public as much. And now when you look at it, especially for your kids' health and the health of yourself for long-term health, you really need to look at the way that sugar really affects that. The other thing is it causes inflammation. So sugar causes inflammation because the body can't function properly. And what does inflammation cause? Diseases and conditions. So, be more proactive about that, about getting rid of the sugar in your diet, making sure it's something that you only have in a very small scale. And if you're cooking and baking, use other alternatives to sugar. And I'll get into that in a minute, which ones you can use. But I just find this is really scary, and I want more people to understand why sugar is such a bad thing for our body, why it's such a disgusting product. And fructose itself, you find anything on the shelves in your grocery store with the word fructose in it or sugar in it, don't even buy it. Chuck it away. Put it to the back of the shelves and tell the shop assistant to take it off the shelves. It's disgusting. What it does for our body is not good at all, and it's not going to help us in any way. There's no nutritional value to sugar, and it also wrecks our teeth. Like, you don't want your kids growing up with rotting teeth because of the amount of sugar that's in their food. And you look at some of the food that's out there for kids. Don't you find that's disgusting? Some of that food that we buy for our kids, the first 2 or 3 ingredients, if they say fructose or sugar, that means there's a hell of a lot of that ingredient in there. And it's disgusting. It's something that's wrecking our kids' brains, wrecking their behavior, making them, more anxious and more depressed at an earlier age. Making them little rat bags, that we can't handle because of the way that they're behaving, and their poor little brain is functioning in such a horrible state. They don't know that that's what's causing it, and it's not their fault they're acting that way if we've just given them some sort of muesli bar or chocolate bar or something that's been full of sugar. So, but yet then we act out on that because we think that they're just being little rat bags and that's just part of them. But if you look at what you're feeding them and the nutritional value that's in all the stuff that you're giving them on a daily basis, you will soon start to see that can play a huge deal in their behavior and the way that they act every day, the way that they sleep, the way that they learn at school, all that sort of stuff. So I just find that this is something we need to be more proactive on, and we need to have more knowledge on. I just find that, we need to be out there looking at this a lot more. The other thing is, it's the contributing factor to obesity for adults and kids. So, that real inner belly fat, that's really scary what that's doing to us. And it raises your cholesterol and your heart disease. Heart disease is one of the biggest killers out there, and they always used to say that saturated fat was the biggest cause of heart disease. But what they're now realizing is it's sugar, you know, the fructose in our foods, the sugar in our foods, and the insulin that spikes. So main cause, obviously, of heart disease and cholesterol is now sugar, and they are realizing that through the studies that they're doing every single day, you know, for scientists and nutritionists and all that sort of stuff. And I love that we're starting to learn more about this sort of thing. And, you know, the fact that our body can't really metabolize fructose and sugar in a perfect way, the way it could with veggies and fruits and that sort of stuff. And when I talk about sugar, I don't talk about fruits, because they're a completely different sugar to, you know, to your processed commercial sugars, you know. So that's a completely different thing. Again, we need some of our fruits, you know, they're high antioxidants, they're very good for our, you know, minerals and magnesium and all that sort of stuff. So fruit is out of the picture when I'm talking about this. This is more commercial fruits and fructose and all those disgusting ones that we find in our packet foods on the shelves, and you know, that you can buy that are really cheap and easy to buy. This is why we buy this stuff, because it is cheap and easy, and it's quick to go and buy from the shop and then put in the kids' lunches. But have a think about what that's doing to their little brain, what that's doing to their learning and their behavior activities and all those sorts of things. I feel like I need to be more aware and alert of what this does to our kids, because I don't want my kids growing up with, you know, loads of sugar in them like I was. I was completely addicted to sugar, and that wasn't my parents' fault, that was my own fault. But it's just, you know, this is the sort of stuff we need to be very knowledgeable on and be more proactive about, in my opinion. And I feel like I would love to be out there letting people know about this. This is my Wellness Wednesday tip for today, is about sugar. So the other thing is that fructose is that biggest killer. And this is the one that you find in all those packaged foods, like I said, on the shelves of all your stores. It's the easiest one to come across, and it's the one that, you know, you don't really want to be buying and even looking at. So let's look at some alternatives to sugar. You can use, there's a few different ones you can use. Yes, they'll still spike your insulin levels, and they still cause a bit of havoc on the body. But if you're only doing these, you know, in a treat, you know, you're having this as a treat, and it's something that you've done in your cooking or baking, and it's a little treat that you have for the week, not for the day, for the week, then, you know, it's going to be okay. But these are obviously a lot better than your, you know, your white sugar and brown sugar and fructose and all those sorts of things. So the first one is maple syrup. Yes, it's going to spike your insulin a bit, but nowhere near as much as your store-based sugars and your processed sugars. And maple syrup, you don't need much of it. You know, it's very sweet on its own, so you don't need much of maple syrup to make something sweeter. I used to, when I went off sugar and I was trying to cut right back, I used to put a tiny bit of maple syrup in my coffee or tea just to, you know, get that sweetness. And now I don't need anything like sugars or natural sweeteners or anything in my coffee or tea, because you soon get used to the fact that you don't need it. Your brain's activity can then go back to the right type of functioning, so you then have, you know, better functioning, happier mood, you sleep better, you know, your behavior's better in the day, you're not as short with your kids in the day and all that sort of stuff, because your brain is functioning properly with all those hormones and, you know, things that happen in the brain's function itself. So this is why, you know, I look at other alternatives to sugar, because they don't do that to the brain. The other one is natural honey. And when I mean natural, I mean the raw honey that you can get locally from your, you know, your honey guy, that hasn't been processed or put through any process before it goes to your door. So, you know, when we look at honey, we can't look at the store-bought honey, because a lot of it is processed, it's gone through different stages, and all the goodness has been taken out of it. But if you get proper, raw, local honey, that's some of the best sort of sweetener you can use within your, you know, your lifestyle and your day-to-day sweetener that you use for your, whatever you do, your cooking or baking and that sort of stuff. The other one is stevia. I don't really like stevia because there's some products that are also in stevia, unless you find the 100% stevia, but there's also sometimes a lot of things mixed in with that. But my favorite is xylitol. It's completely plant-based. There's absolutely nothing else in it apart from that plant that's been, you know, put down into that process of becoming a sugar. And you cannot tell the difference with normal sugar and xylitol, I don't think. There's no bitter aftertaste like there is with stevia. And for me, it is the go-to, and it's the one that was being recommended to from my naturopath. So that's why I use it, and why I find, you know, I did a few bit of studies on xylitol, and it's my favorite one because of what I found with the studies as well. So I'm a bit of a study head. The other one is brown rice syrup, or rice malt syrup. So it's really good as well because it's the lowest one for low GI. It doesn't spike your insulin in any way compared to all the other ones. And obviously it's made from brown rice. So, you know, it is, you know, the carb content's there, but nothing still like your sugar or anything like that. So I find that it is amazing. And it's really good for cooking as well, you know, because you can use it. And even in tea and coffee, your brown rice syrup or your rice malt syrup's really good for that as well. So I hope you got value from this. Please like or share or comment if it was of value to you. I love and enjoy doing these Wednesday wellness tips for you all. And I will be doing them obviously every single week, and I hope you get some value out of them. And please subscribe to my videos if you think that these are something you want to keep learning from and learning about on every Wednesday. And I'll speak to you all on the next video. See ya.